In Britain, we've always been told by prime ministers, I think by people you just flew over with to St. Petersburg today, that if Britain doesn't act with the United States, we are smaller in the world, we carry less weight. Presumably you come here then, a diminished leader of a diminished country.
Oh, I don't accept that for a moment. I mean, Britain's relationship with America is very strong. We're also coming to this G20 with an economy that's growing, whereas previous G20s we've faced tough economic times. And we'll be leading the arguments here about the need for instance, humanitarian aid in Syria. So I don't accept that. Look,
nothing's changed.
On Syria, an important thing has changed. We will be leading the arguments on humanitarian affairs. We'll be leading the arguments on the peace process, but on the issue of military action, Britain won't be taking part.
But that's a world of difference, isn't there, between being an assistant to the chief cop, as the Americans police the world, deputy sheriff, and being an ambulance man. Of course this humanitarian work is incredibly important, but you argued for us to be there, side by side, in military action, because you thought it was critically important, not just to the world, to rules, but also to our standing.
No, that's not right. I argued that it was right for Britain to be part of action, because I think when you see children being gassed on your television screen and you see the widespread use of chemical weapons, it is right for the world to act. And I'm proud that I made that strong argument from conviction. And I'm also proud of the fact we took it to Parliament. But when you live in a democracy and you live in a parliamentary democracy, you respect the will of Parliament. So Britain will continue with all of its work on Syria, but on this one issue, military action, Britain won't be involved.
Suddenly it's all sort of being terribly understated. It was momentous last week, this decision. It was very critical. It was our greatest duty to do this, to be side by side with the Americans. You were making the case very passionately in the House of Commons, and you failed to persuade many people in your own party or the country. Do you feel a sense of failure?
Well, I feel a sense of responsibility for making a strong and, as you say, passionate argument about children being gassed in Syria and how we should respond. But I'm equally passionate about being a Democrat, about respecting the will of Parliament. I wanted Parliament to have its say, it had its say, and straight away I said, look, it's clear that this Parliament does not want British involvement in this military action. So let's put that to one side, let's not quibble about it for days on end, and let's get on with the other important work that we're doing.
Well, we're seeing President Obama do it at the moment. It's been called flooding the zone, I think, where he speaks on every single outlet, talks to every single politician, exhausts himself and gets his whole team on the case. You didn't quite do that, did you?
Well,
Some people say you just sort of presumed you might win this vote.
I don't accept that. I had to, if I wanted to consult Parliament on the evidence that I had, on the potential timings that were in place, I had to recall Parliament very quickly. I don't regret doing that. It was the right thing to do. That gave me, obviously, a more limited amount of time to make the arguments, but I thought it was important to try and do the three things that I wanted to do. Firstly, to act as a good and strong ally to the United States. Secondly, to act against the use of chemical weapons that are so repulsive that we should be condemning them. And third, to be a good Democrat and take those arguments to the House of Commons. Now, I had to do those three things. I had a limited time in which to do them, and I accept the consequences of the House of Commons vote.
Well, there might have been a case for trying to keep doing it, mightn't there? You slammed the door shut on the whole idea that night after the vote, but there might have been a case for doing it after Britain had gone through the hoops that both motions, the Labour amendment and your own motion, seem to be asking for.
Well, I think having listened to the debate and having listened to so many colleagues, many of whom who voted for the government, but with huge uncertainty about future military action, and you have to remember, the vote that we had was not a vote for military action, it was a vote for a motion that could lead to a process that could have led to another vote for military action.
And they couldn't even support that.
And I think
so you came
my
away
interpretation of what happened in the House of Commons couldn't have been clearer, which is that the British public are deeply sceptical about the crisis in Syria and Britain's involvement, and British members of Parliament, reflecting those sincerely held views, don't want Britain to be involved in this military action.
So you said in the debate in the House of Commons you were only interested in limited action, degrading the chemical weapons in Syria, full stop, end of story. Are you quite clear that's still President Obama's plan? Because noises out of Washington suggest he may be looking to rebalance the forces in Syria. Or does he not talk to you about this sort of stuff anymore?
I'm clear from all the conversations I had with President Obama that the specific issue of chemical weapons and chemical weapons use and the crossing of the red line that he and others put down is what has triggered this debate about military action, and the military action will be very specific about deterring and degrading future chemical weapons use. Of course, there is a separate debate, which is about how the West responds to the crisis in Syria, and I've always argued and continue to argue that we need to be on the front foot. We should be helping those rebels that want a free and democratic Syria, and that Syria will be better off without President Assad. And I'll continue to make all those arguments, and so will President Obama.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.